Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the new adventures of K-Man and Spence, episode 3. I am Spence, Spencer Bennett, and of course, right next to me on my left is Kieran Collins, K-Man. Kieran, say hi to the people.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? A
Yeah,
lot is up. This was a really, really sad week for
I'm
comic book
heartbroken,
fans
dude. I'm
and comic
heartbroken.
book movie fans. Yeah, it was a big bummer. Obviously, we normally start the show with what were we reading, random volumes or collected editions we decided to pick up, but we figured it'd be beneficial for everyone to off the top just kind of address some of the really, really sad stuff that happened this week. I mean, we'll obviously begin with the tragic passing of Black Panther actor Chadwick Boseman. Huge bummer. I addressed it on Disney Deconstructed a little bit because Marvel kind of overlaps with the show and that show. And it's really, really, really sad. He, especially in a time where, he meant so much to people, and in a time where our country's kind of broken, to lose a superhero, let alone, a black superhero, is a really
I mean,
super,
the star, not Blade, not included, like the star, like the first black superhero in a
yeah,
movie. You know,
unbelievable poor timing. And I mean, what a guy was really kind of my takeaway from it. After the initial shock and the kind of sadness of, oh my goodness, what that's so horrible is, I mean, he was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2016. So Civil War was already shot and premiering, but he filmed Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame, all knowing he was fighting this terrible, terrible disease.
he was. And based on the official statement, which by the way, most liked tweet ever on Twitter,
it's
which is crazy. Deserved, but crazy. And they were saying that like he was doing surgeries and chemotherapy and all this stuff, all the while shooting some of the biggest movies of all time.
And these aren't even just normal movies. I mean, the guy was in incredible shape, working out every day, eating crazy things to be in Black Panther shape and filming the biggest film of all time. I mean, that no one can take that from him. He was
It's
integral
one of those
part of the biggest
yeah.
movie ever,
It's one of those things that makes you kind of reassess how terrible of a problem cancer really is. That
It seems
even
like we
people,
go in kind of waves of realizing how terrible cancer is. Like,
yeah, like even like he's at peak physical fitness, and on that Marvel diet, he's got to be eating so healthy and doing everything you can possibly do right for your body, and yet even still, like, cancer, dude.
Yeah, it's awful. But yeah, just tell me your thoughts. Like, what were you thinking when you first heard the news? I think everyone appreciates kind of breaking it down a little bit.
Yeah, it was shock and awe, honestly. Our other roommate Alex came in, and it was the two of us in the room, and he said, "Guys, bad news." And we were like, "What?" He's like, "Chadwick Boseman just died." And it was crazy, like so nuts. Like I didn't believe it, honestly. When you first said I did not believe it, I Googled it, and I immediately, obviously, everything confirmed immediately. Mm-hmm. Within 15 minutes of it being announced, everybody knew. It was like all anyone was talking about. Twitter was blowing up with people mourning and stuff. Just so sad, man. Just so sad. Yeah, like it makes me even thinking about it right now makes me like a little bit choked up, because it's just like the dude was 42, his career and his career was just starting. He did all these other ones before. He played Jackie Robinson, he played James Brown, which are obviously not in any way, shape, or form small roles, right?
That's no, I mean, those are two like huge historical figures. So those are big shoulders, I guess. All right, big shoes. That's what I'm looking for. Big shoes are ready to fill, and he knocked both of them out of the park.
Yeah, and all of that, even like he really, for me anyway, he was only really on the radar when Black Panther came out. I saw the James Brown movie when it came out, but I didn't really clock that at the time of seeing it when they announced Black Panther that it was the same actor.
Right.
And yeah, like I mean, to get cast in Civil War, to get cast in Civil War, to film Civil War, and then to get a diagnosis the same year that Civil War comes out, which by the way, he was fantastic in. That's the one that that's the one I keep thinking of. Like Black Panther is an amazing movie, obviously, but I always just think of how much was happening in Civil War and how he was able to like still be one of the most standout parts of that movie. Such a great first appearance.
Yeah, I'm not going to revise history on myself. I'm very well documented on the Disney show for not being that big on Black Panther. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I definitely thought it was a little overrated as a film. Never once in my criticism did I ever critique his performance. I mean, he's terrific. I mean, everyone. That's he embodied that character, you know, both on and off the screen. That was something Lane said on Disney Deconstructed, and that really stuck with me too. It's just, regardless of my thoughts on the individual film Black Panther, he was terrific. You know, all the acting in that movie was top notch. That was never any of my problem with it.
It was so clear, like, how much it meant to him to be that person to so many children. You know, like Black children around the world finally got to see someone who looked like them on screen as a superhero. You know, and not the villain as it has been for a lot of history. Right. So to have that ability, to have that role, and to be able to also visit like sick kids in hospitals and stuff, you know, and there's a lot of interviews with him talking about that, and he gets really emotional, and you realize it breaks your heart because you realize looking back at it, nobody knew. Ryan Coogler didn't even know. Did you see that?
I did not know.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler, in a statement, he said that in his statement, like, about Chadwick, he wrote this really beautiful, like, letter, right? Talking about Chadwick, and he was saying, with his exact experience of it, he was like, Chadwick never let him know, or nobody ever let him know. Ryan Coogler, director of Black Panther, didn't even know, you know? So, and the reason he was saying was that, like, Chadwick was just such a nice, down-to-earth guy that he didn't want to put the weight on other people's consciences, you know? Consciences. I said that wrong. But
close enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine having that big of a heart. And the entire time Ryan Coogler knew Chadwick, in his letter, he also said that Chadwick had cancer. Like, the whole time he knew him, and he didn't know, you know?
True. I mean, that's a pretty crazy thought, to be working so closely with someone and them not really share with you. And you got to respect his decision. He didn't want to take the focus away from the celebration of, you know, what Black Panther stood for. And it wasn't about him. It was bigger than him. And that's incredibly brave and, you know, strong and just very commendable guy. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, like, what a guy. You know, the more removed from it we get, the more impressive of a human being, let alone an actor, he was. So, and
it kind of it made me think anyway, because I remember, like, my Explore page on Instagram is so filled up with superhero stuff, right? It's memes and superhero stuff. And I remember there being, like, so many of these Marvel pages, and, like, some of them were, like, super, like, don't like Black Panther, right? Like, the hating on Black Panther kind of ones, because there's always hot takes for everything. There's also pages that say The Incredible Hulk starring Edward Norton is the best MCU movie, which is just, like,
it's a big swing.
The hottest take I've heard in my life.
Yeah, that's a big thing to say.
But even on these kind of things, like, the people who are criticizing it and stuff, like, it's there's a face behind that screen, you know? Like, all the people who are like, oh, like Chadwick Boseman, like, the people didn't like his performance, which you obviously have a right to not like his performance in the movie, but it just kind of made me reflect that, like, now that when someone's gone, you really appreciate them, you know? Whereas, like, I would feel like a fake fan if I were to say that I was a huge above and beyond Chadwick Boseman fan, and I watched all his interviews and everything, right? Yeah. But now that he's gone, I kind of regret that I didn't keep up on him and learn a bit more about him, you know?
Totally.
Because he's such a cool guy, such an inspirational guy.
I mean, when we heard the news, I was reorganizing my comic collection, which is in 2 big old shoe boxes to my right over here. And I immediately sifted through, and I was like, did I ever read any Black Panther growing up? And unfortunately, I didn't. He wasn't, in my defense, I guess, he wasn't the biggest character, you know. He very much was put on the map by these films as far as, like, big pop culture zeitgeist of the character. I mean, I obviously knew about, like, the very iconic cover of him with Storm and other stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, super, super sad. You're wearing a Black Panther t-shirt right now.
I am.
You know,
Spencer got it for me.
I did. After we heard the news, saw it on sale somewhere, and I said, you know, Kieran's a bigger Marvel guy than me, and I'm sure he's much more impacted than I am. So pick that up for you, buddy. But yeah, obviously super, super sad. You know, rest in peace. I think people are saying rest in power now. So rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. I mean, you touched a lot of lives, and your legacy will not be forgotten. There you go.
Wakanda forever.
There it is. In other sad news, not quite as sad, but I guess could be, Batman production was halted today, and the news broke that Robert Pattinson has COVID-19. And in theme of T-shirts, I'm wearing a Pattinson T-shirt I got from DC Fandom right now. So Kieran and I are bringing you all the good vibes.
We planned our wardrobe today.
Of course, yeah. Super, super sad. Like, what they just committed to production. They built all these new sets in Warner Brothers London, like in the sound stages on Warner Brothers lot in London. And he gets COVID. Like, unbelievable turn of events. Super sad. I mean, we all are hoping and you know, praying, if that's your thing, that Robert Pattinson is going to be okay. Let alone from the movie, just the person, you know, that's super scary.
I'm sure
for COVID.
I feel I don't know if this is right or not, but I feel strangely like I definitely don't feel. I feel like he'll be fine. You know,
I mean,
just
the
because
odds are in his favor based on just the data odds of him being young, in great shape. You know,
and also like how many really rich people have a lot of stake in his livelihood. You know,
right? No, he's gonna get the best care. No kidding us. Like, you know, you'd be kidding yourself if you didn't think he's in the top care right now.
This isn't indie Rob Pat. This is Batman Rob Pat.
This is Batman, you know? Rob Pat. Yeah.
He's got top men on him.
Of course.
Yeah.
But obviously,
top men or women. I apologize. Top men or women. I just caught myself there. That's bad.
You know, it happens. But I mean, we never know. You never know if he had any pre-existing conditions or anything. COVID is a very tricky thing. So, you know, we're all, I'm sure you and I are both really hoping to hear he's doing well, and let alone to get the Batman back into production. That's really not what matters at this point, just that Robert Pattinson's okay. I'd hate to hear about any more people on that set contracting it. Unfortunately, when the lead of your movie, who's in, I'm sure, 90% of the film, you know, has tested positive, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that there's other people on the set that have it. So hoping we don't hear about that, but just thought we'd bring you the news. Batman production is halted. No word on if they're going to delay the movie or not. Again, in my opinion, not really important at the present moment. As excited for that movie as I am. I mean, I'm wearing the freaking shirt that I bought from the DC Fandom 24-hour store. But obviously we're excited to see him in the character. But first, let's just hope he recovers well, and I have a good feeling as well. The odds are in his favor, so to speak.
Yeah, but the other thing, because I just thought of this when you said that, right? Mm-hmm. The other part of that sucks, though, given that he's on every single scene and stuff, right? Like, there's got to be some older crew members on that set, you know. So I hope nobody, like, that's the more scary part, you know. Who contracted it off of Robert Pattinson, or did Robert Pattinson get it from somebody on set? They need to figure it out, like a bubble or something, you know?
Well, that's because they were testing everyone, you know, when they came in to the set to shoot, but they really should have been bubbling everyone, because you have no idea. And there's false positives and false negatives. Like, tests aren't 100% foolproof. There is room for error. That's just science. And studies and stuff. So they really should have been quarantining people and keeping more tabs on them. I mean, we don't know what the exact process was. They very well could have been, and we sound very, very dumb right now, but someone tested positive for COVID on your set. Something went wrong. You know, your idea of the quarantine. Something didn't go according to plan, and life happens. Nobody's perfect. There's been cases in the NBA bubble is kind of what a big thing people are pointing to of how to handle this well. For those of you listening to the show that don't follow sports, which I imagine maybe some of you,
myself included,
Kieran, the NBA is doing a bubble. The National Basketball Organization has a big bubble in Orlando, Florida, where all the teams are playing games, and they're not allowed to see anybody who's not in the immediate circle of the teams playing playoffs right now. It's really smart. It seems to be effective so far. There have been players that have still tested positive who have left the bubble and been not smart. But it happens, you know. You can't control every aspect of people, and life happens, and, you know, people make decisions. But
nobody
seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, there's no case that better exemplifies that than also the fact that Dwayne Johnson has COVID.
Yeah,
is getting over COVID.
I mean, Dwayne Johnson and his family have come out and said that they are in recovery from COVID-19. I made a joke earlier in the day that probably was not in the best taste, but I was like, you know, The Rock probably flexed and it left his body. If anyone's gonna beat a virus, it's gonna be The Rock. I mean, the peak human form is Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You know, you can't get much bigger than Dwayne and much healthier than Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I'm sure his family's on all sorts of supplements and different things health wise. Like, I'm sure he's like a vitamin guy. He strikes me as like a nutrition vitamin guy.
I would say so.
GNC and whatnot, but all jokes aside, the dude, glad to hear they're okay.
every fiber of muscle that guy puts on is another $1 million in his bank account.
Of course,
you know, like that's just his body is his work.
I was saying his brand is being The Rock.
Yeah,
and so in his defense, he's become a really good actor over the years.
Oh yeah,
you know,
no, definitely,
he's pretty good. And I'm obviously excited to see him as Black Adam, but
that's a fascinating concept. Imagine, like, because later in life, You know what? I take that back. I was about to say there's no way he keeps this up. I feel like that man could be 90 years old and still be fucking shredded.
Yeah,
So
no, I
I
don't
don't
doubt
see
that
him
he'll be
ever
big.
changing that.
Yeah, he's the Rock, man. He wakes up at 4:30 a.m. and works out. I wake up at like noon, like a piece of garbage, and I look at my Instagram and there's the Rock at 4 a.m. going morning pump, and I'm just I'm not that good at life. But anyways, they're in recovery. We hope that goes smoothly. Obviously, it's scary, but good to hear that they're doing well.
And
yeah.
so far, Noah Centineo is all good.
Yeah,
so,
I mean they're not
no worries
yet.
Whew.
Black Adam is not in production quite yet, but yeah, a lot of sad news this week. But with that out of the way, we are going to go into just collected editions. What we read this week, kind of just loosey goosey, and then we'll go into issues a little later on. But both of us read what I have in my hand right here, which is Tom Taylor's Deceased, the first volume of it. Before, I think the second one's called Unkillables, and then the one that just finished recently, much to our dismay, we wanted to catch up on issues on it, was Deceased Dead Planet. So that wrapped up this week, if you're an avid Deceased reader. But we are going to give our thoughts on the just original 6-issue miniseries Deceased by Tom Taylor. Kieran, what did you think of Deceased?
Loved it.
Yeah,
absolutely, very, very good. The way it takes all these, not even like threads of story, but just from years and years of comics, all of these characters that are in universe, and everything lines up perfectly and everything makes sense. And like what Aquaman would do if he was to be infected with the anti-life equation, like lines up perfectly with what I would think and what I would imagine Aquaman would do. It's got a great sense of grand scale while still clearly like a very, very, very good knowledge of that universe on behalf of Tom Taylor or whoever else his consultant was on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it fucked.
I was blown away. I remember when we first picked it up because we had heard about it and were interested in kind of some of the more Black Label stuff. And I said, oh, let's read Deceased. Dead Planet's currently running. Maybe we can catch up on that hype train. I was blown away. I said to you immediately after, it might have been one of the best comics I've read in like a really long time. I was shocked how much I loved it. It felt like a giant Justice League movie. And I compared this to you before. I don't know if I've done this on the show, but the way I approach comics is kind of like movie storyboards. We're both in film school, so that's kind of how we think in terms of movies, and comics always to me read as like storyboards, like someone animated a movie on page and you're kind of seeing their vision of what they would do. And Deceased, I would love to see a Justice League movie like that. They'll never do it because, spoiler alert, like mainly every core member of Justice League dies. But I was shocked how much I loved it. I loved the Superman characterization. I loved the Batman characterization, how little there is of it. But I mean, the first couple pages when Batman goes into the Batcave to find Alfred after Cyborg brings the disease back to Earth, and the Nightwing, Red Hood, and Batgirl all attack him, and they're all
not Red Hood,
out.
not Red Hood.
Oh, it was Tim.
Red Hood's all good. Red Hood's all good.
Tim. Correct. It was Tim as Robin, and they all attacked him, and it was like, what is going on? It was bonkers. I loved it. I loved they used the anti-life equation to kind of explain the apocalypse. That's cool. I like dark side related stuff. But it was terrific. I was shocked how much I loved the Booster Gold. And then I thought it was really clever the way that he died. I mean, we've already been spoiling it. I'm sure if you're I'm sure you've heard, if not know, that most people die in the book called Deceased. But Booster Gold's death was really kind of clever, and they used the way of like his timeline no longer existed because the apocalypse hit the Earth. I thought that was really, really smart. Yeah, it was great. I love Black Canary as Green Lantern. I'm all in on that. I'm all in on Dina being a Lantern. I thought they used her powers really cool. Wonder Woman and Mara, or not Wonder, Hippolyta and Mara fighting off like the Atlanteans and
highlights.
Skira was really cool. Yeah, a lot of thoughts, but it was terrific. I was blown away.
One thing that really kind of stood out to me, a big annoyance sometimes when I'm reading comics, is if I really like a character and feel like I really have a good understanding of them, and then a writer comes on who doesn't quite understand the character, and their take on the character is not my favorite or something, right? Deadpool does that a lot. Shout out Deadpool for that, because they have a lot of writers on Deadpool, and some are better than others. But the way Tom Taylor was able, the way he wrote every individual character, which like it was very nearly every character in DC, right? Or at least in the main continuity. But they were all perfect. Like, the way he wrote Mr. Miracle was really great. The way he wrote Oliver Queen was like exactly what I
I
think
mentioned
Oliver
Oliver
would
Queen
say.
is great in Deceased.
He's
A lot
really,
of
really
great
good. Yeah.
one-liners.
Yeah. So they did a really good job. Or Tom Taylor, and I guess the artist. The artist is. I feel like when we're talking, we should say they, because I know about comics, like the artists don't get enough credit, definitely. So,
Yeah.
I feel like there's got to be some inspiration there, because the art was beautiful too. The art was really like, it was the same all the way through, and they chose a good artist.
So you pick it up. I know that the main cover for the collected edition is Zombie Batman, but I knew Barnes and Noble had a special collected edition of Zombie Superman cover. And if you're listening to this on audio, I'm just holding up the book. But I am obviously a big Superman guy. I'm sure that you've gotten the hint. Superman is my dude. I have a signed Henry Cavill Superman cape to my left right now. So of course I had to seek that out. Spend $10 extra.
And we will insert the clip of him signing it right here.
But yeah, Deceased was awesome, and I really like your point. Tom Taylor had he really seemed like he understood every single character, and that was crazy. And his John Constantine was terrific. And this past week, the first issue of his John Constantine run, his Black Label John Constantine miniseries called, I think, Hellblazer or something along those lines. After reading Deceased, like, I'm going to add that to our list, because I loved his Constantine in Deceased, and I can't wait to see more of what he does with the character. Call me a Tom Taylor fanboy. I'm in. This book hooked me. I really like his writing.
Also, just a Black Label fanboy so far.
I really like Black Label. Yeah, Black Label. I've yet to read a Black Label that was bad. We'll talk about it in our issues, another issue that I read of a new Black Label series, but that I'm sure you've all heard of. It's a pretty big moment, it seems. But yeah, Deceased was terrific. This week, the new DC Inc., but I guess that's not the label they're using anymore. Not sure. But the new YA series from DC, the Teen Titans reboot. You read Raven for the first time, which was the first book that came out last year. I had read it previously, but give me your thoughts on Raven. And then, of course, the sequel, Beast Boy, came out this week. I'm about halfway through it. You have not started reading it yet, but I'll give my initial thoughts of the first half of it so far. But Kieran, what did you think of Teen Titans Raven?
The nice thing about Beast Boy is that technically I have read the first 10 pages, because it's at the end of Raven. So, talk a little bit about that. But with Raven, really, really good. The way that it took the character and the situation putting her in New Orleans with like the kind of a witchy sort of vibe to the family, and the way they used Slade as like, he was like, he basically makes the reference that he's assembling a squad of the Teen Titans. So presumably he's going to show up in Beast Boy as well, and then when they make a Starfire, when they make a Robin, which as you told me before is not what's coming next, which is interesting too.
No, the third book is going to be called Beast Boy Loves Raven, and it comes out in spring of next year.
So, I watched the Teen Titans cartoon when I was a kid. I was always more of a shipper of Terra and Beast Boy, honestly. But Beast Boy and Raven is very cute too. So I'll definitely read that, because she's a great artist, and the artwork is really great. Oh, that's the thing I want to talk about it, because that was the thing that really impressed me. I don't have it as a aid right now, unfortunately, because I lent it to a friend. But the way they use the color, I know I asked permission.
You did,
just for the viewers at home. I'm not that much of a dick. But with the book, like, the way it did color was one of the coolest uses of colors I've ever read in a comic book ever. Everything was like gray scale except for Raven, who was in color. And then when she was like directly talking, or like they say she's like I forget what the word is, but she like empathizes a lot. Empath. That's right. Empath. She's an empath. And so the way they kind of portray that was my interpretation of anyway, was that when she was talking to somebody and like giving them all her emotional attention and stuff, they would be colored, right? And so, and like, it's basically her attention, like what she's looking at. So like when she was looking at the dreamy boy who she has a romantic subplot with, he's in color because like he's everything to her in that moment, like high school is. And also, and I'll let you talk, because I know you got stuff to say too. I'm talking a lot, but because I'm excited about this title. I really liked it.
It was great.
The fact that she is an empath and she is somebody who has to keep her emotions so in check. Obviously this is more of a critique of Teen Titans, but the way the book employs it specifically to put Raven in that situation of just high school, it was so perfect. There wasn't anything that crazy to the plot of it or anything. It was just, it felt more, the main part of it was the character herself, and that was so cool about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved that book. I read it all in one afternoon. It was a gift to me from a friend, and I opened it up, and cause they happened to have 2 copies of it. I don't know how that happened, but they did. And they said, "Hey, I have the second copy of this. I know you're a big DC guy. Why don't you check it out?" And I was like, "Oh, DC Inc. I heard about this. The new YA movement at DC." Young adult, if you don't know what YA means. I'm sure most people do. But yeah, the Raven book was really, really cool. Raven's always been one, if not my favorite member of Teen Titans, probably Robin, but Raven is a super cool character. I like horror-inspired stuff, and Raven is obviously kind of a horror-inspired character. Her father is basically the Satan of the DC universe. But what I really liked was that putting her in high school, it gave very much a Carrie vibe. I'm a big Stephen King fan as well, and definitely felt it was like invoking that kind of imagery, especially the ending with the big dance and everything goes wrong, and it's very much feels like they were kind of going for that tone, which I really appreciated as like a horror fan, especially a Stephen King fan. But yeah, you've read it more recently than me, and it seemed like you gave a little more fleshed out thoughts on it. I remember it obviously, but I don't remember like specific panels to talk about. But yeah, the sequel came out this week.
Wait, really fast before we go on to that.
Before we go on,
another thing about Raven, just because you were saying there about like favorite Titan, but then maybe Robin. Like my favorite's always been Beast Boy. But the thing about Raven that I noticed, we rewatched Terra arc of Teen Titans recently, and just episodes of that in general I've seen since passing the age of maybe 14. I didn't like Raven as much when I was a kid as I do now, because I feel like she's a little bit of an audience insert for like, it's relatable, she deals with some very real high school problems and some very like she has a demon overlord father who she has to keep inside, like because she has the power to unleash his power fully, but she chooses not to. And that's such a cool concept. She also has a sick tattoo in the comics. She has a tramp stamp. You know that?
I did not.
That's in the continuity. There's some like 80s or 90s comic I saw, and she's like, they're like, "Oh, where's Raven? She disappeared. Oh, my Titan locator is saying she's on the street." And then they go to the street, and she's coming out of a tattoo parlor, and she's like, "What do you think, guys?" And like shows her tattoo off.
Wow,
it's cool.
That's fun. That's fun continuity.
Yeah. So Raven.
Yeah, Raven was great. I also really like the setting of New Orleans. I think that's really clever with, the kind of the voodoo, black magic-y history of New Orleans. And that's just from me seeing movies about New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans, but Princess and the Frog, it's a prominent film set in New Orleans. There's a lot of voodoo. And I think that's just a known thing, that there's kind of like a weird, like witchy kind of thing in New Orleans. So putting Raven there is definitely a very interesting and cool choice, I think. And it makes the story a little more interesting. And obviously she lives with like a coven of like witches, like kind of, I don't know remember exactly what they call themselves, but basically that. But yeah, very, very cool. Cami Garcia, I apologize if I'm butchering your name, and Gabriel Piccolo are a great pairing for this series. Garcia's the writer and Piccolo's the artist, and the art is great. And I like that the art's consistent from both books. Just kind of segueing into my thoughts on just the beginnings of Beast Boy. This came out this week.
Beast Boy.
Not at our comic shop, unfortunately. We had to make a trip over to Barnes & Noble, but not too much trouble. I like Barnes & Noble. I like the vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty good so far. He has. I don't want to go too much into spoilers because obviously you haven't read it, and it's brand new this week. And it's not like an issue that people have picked up and read. I mean, it's a full book. It's like a good 200 pages, but I'm liking the tone a lot. It's very similar. He's in high school. He does a little bit to me. I don't want to get too critical, but I feel like his character's a little more one note so far, but also I'm 60 pages in of a 200-page book, so I'm sure that'll hopefully come to pass and pay off. But right now he's a little bit one-dimensional. But I mean, the art is there. It's the same writer. I trust that at the end of the book, I'll be eating my words next week when I finish it. But so far, Beast Boy has been very, very cool. And I just really like this series. I like that they're coming out in collected full books. I'm excited to have them all on my shelf when they all come out in sequential order. So, it was good. Raven's great. This pairing of this writer and this artist are great together. And I'm excited for what comes next. Any final thoughts on Raven, or you haven't started Beast Boy, unfortunately?
I'm super hyped I almost said watch Beast Boy, to read Beast Boy. Super hyped. Because it feels like a movie.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. We are going to take our quick break now. When we come back, we'll talk about the issues we read this week, and then we'll go away. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the new adventures of K-Man and Spence. We're going to hit our final topic of the day, which, as always, is the current issues that we read this week of our comics we're following on our pull list. So we'll start with last episode, we picked up basically what they had on the shelf, and we planned on ordering back issues to catch up to the current continuity, or the current issue. We successfully did that with Batman. So we have the rest of Batman from when we started to issue 98, which I have read. You haven't gotten that far yet. You got to 96, you said, right? Or 97?
97.
Did you finish 97?
No, I'm halfway through 97.
Okay, so halfway through 97. James Tynion's Batman so far has, in my opinion, been terrific. I've loved it. I love this Joker War plot line. I really like the character of Punchline as well, which is like the Joker's kind of new squeeze. And I think there's a great bit in issue 98 that you haven't gotten to yet, where she has an exchange with Harley Quinn, and it's really cool. And I just liked seeing kind of someone who's in the same, being manipulated in the same way that Harley was, and Harley kind of being like, "Hey, wake up." It's a really cool exchange, and I like the character of Punchline. I like her design. She scares me. She looks intimidating. I like that she has like a crazy long sword.
And her costume looks very homemade. That's one thing I noticed.
It's super cool. You're going to get a little more of her origin in this. I know her origin was in a previous issue that I have not read, but maybe I will, since I'm really into the character. But I mean, Batman getting injected with crazy toxins and basically tripping out for like 3 issues is interesting.
Yeah.
And he keeps. Or how far are you in seeing Alfred where you are?
He's
hearing Alfred.
He's on the comm. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this continuity, Alfred's dead. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really loving Tynion's Batman so far. Tell me about where you are in the story before we go a little bit. I mean, we've already kind of got.
Well, just to say about Tynion himself. The dude, like I said this to you before. But the guy brought me back into comics, kind of. I love James Tynion the Fourth. I'm a big fan. He wrote Talon, which he was originally under the tutelage of Scott Snyder while Scott Snyder was working on his famous Batman run. And James Tynion came to him with this pitch for The Owl That Got Away from the Court of Owls, and this whole story about this guy Calvin Rose, who short-lived series, unfortunately. The first volume is admittedly way better than the second volume, so maybe it's a good thing they ended it because the quality was going downhill. But for the first arc, such solid writing, and reading Batman has really brought me back to that, which is nice. Because he wrote, and I think before he wrote this current Batman run, I think he did like Batman Incorporated, or no, he was writing Detective Comics. That was it. He was writing Detective Comics. And so that's obviously going to give you a lot of groundwork for understanding the universe and all the characters in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what Tynion really seems to me. He seems like he's so confident in his knowledge of the lore that he's really bringing his own spin to it. So where I am in the comic, I'm at the part where, spoiler alert for James Tynion's Batman run number 97 and beyond. He's at the part where he's at the Monarch Theater where Zorro was shown, and he's got the whole audience of like
scene.
Jokers, all the people Joker has ever killed and stuff. And I loved that scene. My favorite thing so far has been that scene where it was the flashback to the first time he fought Joker, and he's on the phone with Alfred, and he's like, Alfred is like, "Oh, another day done, sir," and he's like, "No, not this time. There's something different about him. It's like he thinks that everybody is dead and he's the only one alive, and by killing them, he's only helping them along their way." But he sees Batman as also being alive too, and he's the first person that the Joker has met.
He's like the only person the Joker deems worthy of being with him,
which is so cool. Like I don't think there's definitely like veins of that within Batman comics before. It's not coming out of nowhere, but I love that take.
I mean, that is really the core breakdown of the Joker character. Is Batman is everything to him, and vice versa. They are the yin yang of each other. They're two sides of the same coin. Someone broken by tragedy, but they just go in such different directions. Because for all intents and purposes, Bruce Wayne is crazy. Bruce Wayne dresses up as a bat and fights crime at night. Bruce Wayne is crazy, but he uses his crazy in a different direction than
in
Joker
a good way,
does.
in a morally
Tynion
just
really
way.
understands that relationship. My question for you, as I was reading it, I was thinking, I was like, are these zombies like actually alive with Joker gas, or is the Joker just dig up all the bodies and then inject Batman with that toxin, and this is just Batman tripping out?
I haven't gotten to the point where I know the answer to that question in any
I don't
way.
either.
They're right. Currently, they haven't actually come to life yet. Right now, he's just talking about them, and they're in the crowd with like the gas coming out, and he's like, "Who's going to be more angry? The ones who are recently deceased, or the ones who you couldn't prevent their deaths when I was a much smaller deal?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in a way, Batman has allowed for all of these deaths. Because if he just killed Joker in the first place when he knew in his gut that things were wrong, but that of course goes back to the classic issue of, should Batman kill, and why doesn't Batman kill, and what would happen if he were to kill? And there's a lot of different takes on that.
Him killing Joker has a lot of substantial evidence of that he probably should. but there's
also
also
he shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly, because then he's no better.
And that's the origin story for the Joker who laughs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he kills Joker, but then Joker has it set up that as soon as he dies by the hands of Batman, it releases a toxin into Batman's face that drives him crazy and makes him Batman who laughs. Okay. Yeah. What did I say?
You said Joker who laughs.
Oh yeah.
Well, Joker laughs.
Yeah, Batman who laughs. So like that's example for like why not. Of course he doesn't know that, or he does because he fought him, right? Regular continuity Batman fought himself another timeline who's Jokerized, right? So you know, there's a lot of stuff, and like really like in realistic life, yeah, he probably should, but I like that the way they want to keep the Joker obviously alive for a reason, and he dies all the time anyway.
Supervillain of all time.
Yeah, he can't really be killed, at least in the New 52 post New 52 continuity. But even still, like they need a way to keep him around because he's such a big character, and I like the way that they justify that. You know, it makes sense story wise, and they've done a really good job of doing that, just in general, and including Tynion going forward.
But yeah, 97 is a really cool issue. Have you gotten to the point where Harley Quinn is taking care of Bruce yet?
I have, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I like that Harley Quinn is kind of realizing this is bigger than. She's really in recent years with the films kind of taken on an anti-hero a little bit. Like she's still nuts and does crazy stuff, but there is some redemption to Harley Quinn when she dumped the Joker, which is kind of the story that every new Harley Quinn run kind of goes with, is that she jumped the Joker, because I think it makes her character a little more interesting, and you know there's more to it than that. She's no longer she no longer becomes a side piece. She becomes a character worthy of her own stories, which she is. Harley's a great character.
Yeah, she's a very popular character too.
Oh yeah.
You know? So by making her an anti-hero, like they're able to. It's an evolution. It feels like a natural evolution. It doesn't feel like it's just doing it for the money. You know.
Yeah.
The Harley Quinn TV show you really like. I've seen it. I've seen a little bit of it, and the bits I've seen I've really liked. And then she's had that run, her New 52 run or her Rebirth run or something recently, was really good, I think. And that's of course when they set up her and Poison Ivy, which I also am a big fan of that romance because
it's awesome. Yeah,
it's a natural chemistry between the two of them.
It is. And in the current Batman run, she talks about Ivy. I don't know if you're there yet, but that's in this continuity, and there's a cool exchange between Punchline and her about Ivy. But yeah, the current Batman run is great, and as more issues come, we'll talk about it more. But you know, we're both loving it. We're loving Tynion's version of the character. He seems to really understand Batman, but he's also doing things that I think are really interesting. I mean, he really is showing the strength of Batman's side characters and Batman's rogues gallery. Because for these last 3 issues, I mean, it's a lot of been intimate flashback Batman stuff and not super action heavy. But there's been a lot of focus on Selena Kyle, a lot of focus on Harley Quinn, a lot of focus on Joker. I mean, and there's a lot of other characters that are really holding the story up, which I think is an interesting choice. And you know, I thought Joker War was only going to be 4 issues, but at the end of 98, it's not really resolved. Spoiler. So I imagine it's going to go longer, or maybe they'll just stop calling it Joker War and he'll just end this battle with Joker.
It'll be like the afterwards or something. Because these issues will probably be collected into like a.
And I'm sure they'll have the issues after and the issues before too, building up to it,
and all the and tie-ins.
Yeah,
too.
the Batgirl and Nightwing and Detective
and Red Hood,
that are doing this story as well. But I mean, I'm really into it. I'm here for it. I'm when it comes collected, I'll buy the collector so I can get the other supplemental issues that we're not currently following.
I
But
also to respect the artists, I also want to shout out
do it.
George Jimenez. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Probably Jimenez.
Jimenez probably, yeah. But he's like I love the way he draws Batman too. It's very classic looking. His suit in this comic is great, and also I don't know if there's any. I think it's in a previous book. There's examples, but I love the way that like when Batman's suit is slashed in this comic, it looks like chainmail almost. Like the way he draws the fibers of the suit when they're cut is so cool looking, and it really reminds me of like Knight Batman kind of, and also Talon, because Talon really fast again. Talon has like scales on his suit, so for me that was like, please bring back Talon, DC. Bring back Talon, DC. I'd love it.
You've been talking me into Talon for good weeks now.
I need to read it. I need to get it mailed.
Yeah, I don't want to buy it, but you have it back home in Chicago.
I have both. I have number 1 and number 2.
There it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, current Batman is great. We also got our hands on Adam Strange's Strange Adventures, I think is what the title is called. Tom Taylor writing that. And Tom King, excuse me. Tom King writing that.
Yeah. Tom King. You're right, Tom King.
And we got issue 2. They're on currently, I think, we got issue 4 in our pull list. We're still trying to track down a copy of issue 3. We learned the problem with why we can't find any DC backlogs. It's because they just changed distributors, so a lot of shops are having trouble, restocking on stuff, specifically our shop we go to. So we are still trying to find 3, but we got our hands on 2. We read 2. I liked it just as much, if not more, than the first. I think it's really funny that there's a cliffhanger of Batman tells Strange, I'll get someone to look into it as far as like proving your innocence. And he gets Mr. Terrific.
But they make Mr. Terrific so cool though.
Oh yeah.
Like that's what I loved about it.
Of all the characters, I just didn't think it would be him. I mean, I like the way they intro him where he's like working out and he has like a little like robot basically like asking him all of these questions, like keeping his knowledge, like brain working out almost too while he's physically working out.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool idea.
And while he's sleeping and everything, like the dude trains all the time.
He earns the title of Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, and I like seeing that because one thing I always think in like movies and comics and everything, right, is you have these big hulking superhero dudes, right? And the ones you have your Captain Americas who just have it from a test vial, right? But the people like Batman who have to work out and stuff, like that would be to get as big and jacked as they are. In addition to the patrol you have to do at night, you would have to do an insane amount of work, right, during the day. Yeah. And that was a cool way of showing that he actually does it, He's Mr. Terrific isn't super smart because he was born with it. He does have that natural ability, I'm sure, but he's constantly quizzing himself on the most random shit. And I think that's such a cool take on the character. A character who honestly, like, he was in Deceased. He was cool in Deceased. But
yeah, I've always thought with the full T on his face.
Yeah, I've always thought that Mr. Terrific was kind of dumb, like
of
full
his
honesty.
His name is Mr. Terrific.
But he's sick as he's cool,
In both things we read this week that featured Mr. Terrific, I thought he was a cool character.
Yeah, honestly.
Did you read Adam Strange 2 all the way through, right?
I read Adam Strange 2 all the way, yeah.
Dude, the cliffhanger. Apparently they said he killed his daughter, or his daughter's not dead.
Yeah, she's not dead.
Yeah. And I was like, huh? So he's lying about something. It would be so bold because this is only a 12-issue miniseries. It's DC Black Label. As we said earlier, Black Label is awesome. If you're not reading Black Label titles, you should be. They're a lot of fun. But is he lying?
Well, the really cool thing about it is that it's like it's taking this thing of the place he's talking about is light years away, right? So he's writing an autobiographical book that no one can. Yeah, Adam Strange wrote it. Yeah. Adam Strange wrote the autobiography, and nobody can fact check or verify anything. So you have to think to yourself, if there's parts of that story that you're not particularly proud of, and no one will ever find out, it's very reasonable that he would change a few of the details. And that's what's cool is that like Mr. Terrific / Batman, because Mr. Terrific's kind of representing Batman, they're able to figure that out. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, totally. It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. And I don't know. It would be really bold if by the end of this, Adam Strange really isn't a hero and he's just been lying about everything. That would be interesting.
Yeah, but it's also Black Label, so I think it's separate from continuity.
Oh yeah.
So if that were the case, like it wouldn't affect the main universe, but it would be. I like that take a lot. And it's also, I mean, it's the first time I've ever read an Adam Strange book. So I've really got nothing to compare it to. But the way he writes him is really cool. Or I guess he's in Young Justice season 2, isn't he? Or was that Booster Gold?
I think that's Booster Gold. Or
Okay,
Blue
I
Beetle.
got them mixed up. No, don't they go to an alien planet? No, not Blue Beetle. They go to an alien planet, I think, at one point. I think Adam Strange is in it. I think.
I'm going to believe you. I don't really remember.
Cool. I think it's the Martian Manhunter planet they go to. It's been a while since I saw Young Justice season 2, so I could also be totally wrong. But yeah, like that. With that being my only thing, like Young Justice is great, but not the same as a Black Label comic book, you know. So
Sure.
Cool, really cool.
Yeah, but we have 4 in our possession, which I believe is the current one, and we just need 3 somewhere.
Yeah.
If you know anywhere to buy a,
if anyone wants to mail us number 3, please reach out.
Yes, please.
That would
be so
cool.
We would like to continue reading it. It's great, but we're, again, DC Switch distributors, so every shop we're going to is struggling to find it. And I'm not big on supporting Amazon.
At Captain Collins on Twitter. Please reach out if you want to send us a copy.
Yes, do that. Anyways, Kieran, this was something you drew to my attention that it came out this week was the Daredevil annual.
I'm going to grab it. 1 second.
Chip Zdarsky, I think is actually how you pronounce it, which is one of your favorite writers. Just took over Daredevil.
Chip Zdarsky.
And that was the annual one, but it's also the beginning of a new run. And,
yeah. Well, it's like a new arc in the Daredevil story.
Mm-hmm.
From what I gathered from before, I know he's been writing Daredevil for like a minute. He's also wrote some Spider-Man, and I told you before his Star-Lord run is so good. I love it. And he brought back the original costume, so I'm always gonna love Chip Zdarsky. And I haven't read Howard the Duck, but he won Howard Awards for that. He's a really hot name at Marvel.
I would gladly read Howard the Duck with you.
Let's do it. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, like it was just really cool. Like I wasn't expecting, because typically he's a very funny guy in real life. Like when I met him, he's probably about the same age as my dad, and he was wearing a dress shirt and these like really 80s tacky yoga pants. And when he took the picture with me and Roy, I can show it to you later. My buddy Roy, shout out Roy. He like stuck his in the picture. Look, I'll stand up because we have the quality of video. In the picture, he was like, I'm going to turn my camera on he was like this. He had his leg up. He had his leg wrapped around me also in the picture. It's great. It's fantastic.
What a guy.
He's a funny guy. But This was serious. This Daredevil, like he's taken it a very serious take on it, which is great for Daredevil. And I haven't read a whole lot of Daredevil. I've seen the whole TV show. And what I have read of him, I've really liked. He's kind of, I always think of him as being like, he's obviously his own thing, but he's kind of Marvel's answer to Batman, basically. And yeah, but like this issue is like, I honestly don't want to talk about details all that much because it's so new, you know, and it's like so good. But like, if you took a Batman comic and changed Martha and Thomas Wayne dying, you know, like that's the take it sort of goes for, and it makes sense from what I know of the Daredevil continuity.
Well, that specific story in that issue, we're not going to go into details, but is kind of like Daredevil meets the Ben Reilly clone saga of Spider-Man. You know what?
We can totally talk about it. I don't know what I'm on. We're like 40 something minutes into the podcast at this point, probably more than that.
Spoiler alert for Daredevil 1.
Spoiler for Daredevil Annual 1.
Yeah.
It changes things. And the
Mike
cover is
Murdock. I am Mike Murdock. How many lines is that in that issue where he just says, I am Mike Murdock? A lot of times. We don't need to count them on the air, but yeah.
I won't, but
Matt Murdock's twin brother now, who was a clone, which is why I referenced, of course, the clone saga in Spider-Man, and then uses the Reality Stone, at least it's implied, uses the Reality Stone to rewrite history and give himself all the memories of being Matt Murdock's actual twin brother. And by the end of it, he is Matt Murdock's twin brother. What a crazy way to start a new run on Daredevil. Yeah.
Especially because Daredevil is usually so grounded, but it takes but it's part of a larger universe, right? So it takes the mystical idea that's probably presented in Doctor Strange or something. I'm not sure if it is the Mind Stone. I think it's like some other
Reality
or something. Is it the Reality Stone?
That's what they say, yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Well, they've obviously
fact check me if I'm wrong, but
that's been there since the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff, right? And that's obviously a way more kind of fantastical story. And so the way it's incorporated into this more like gritty, grounded series, really, really, really dope. Like he incorporates it so well. The way it's written, the way that it all goes, works out so well. You know, just Chip Starsky, good job. Please write Ben Riley. That would be great. That would be fantastic.
That would be really cool.
I would love to read a Chip Starsky Ben Riley, especially because Ben Riley is a very he's a lot more of a humorous character, but he's like a little bit darker than Spider-Man is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit Deadpool-esque almost, but that's why I like him probably. I have him on my wall right there.
There he is.
But yeah, dude, I love Chip Starsky. That's all I have to say, really. That's it for my rant.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the next issue. I've never read Daredevil before. I mean, I know a bit about the character just from being a dork in the series as well. But I'm excited to get into it. I really liked this issue. I thought it was kind of bonkers, and that's fun. I like weird stuff. What can I say?
Yeah. Also, just one other thing. The cover is so cool.
It is such a really cool cover. Yeah.
Who drew that cover? Daredevil boxing. That's a good question, which I'll find out the answer to. Cover artist. Oh, you're ready for this?
Yeah.
You're not going to believe it.
Oh.
Cover artist, Chip Starsky.
Oh, no way.
He's an artist too. Yeah, he did the drawings for the art. He did the art for Sex Criminals.
Very cool.
Which is another very famous series. So Matt Fraction's writer on that, and he's artist, but he also gets away with technicalities because he has a contract with Marvel as a writer. Mm-hmm. But he does covers for DC sometimes too.
Hey.
Because he can get away with it.
Very cool.
Cool guy.
But yes, Daredevil Annual 1. High recommend for both of us. Check it out. And then something that came out last week that we saw on the shelves went, maybe. And then this week I finally caved when we went into our store is the new Black Label series, the 3-issue series that is very hyped up at the moment. Batman 3 Jokers. You have not had a chance to read this first installment.
I don't know anything, but also light spoilers are totally chill. Yeah. You know?
I'll do my best to not spoil anything. Okay. Obviously, we talked about earlier kind of how the Joker is bigger than a person, and there's so much more to him. Earlier when we were doing the Tinian Batman, talking about, you're talking about the Joker and how he's taken on so many different forms throughout the years. What 3 Jokers does is interesting is that there's more than one. And they're obviously the title is 3 Jokers, but and it's a mystery. Who are these different Jokers? Are there actually different Jokers, or are we seeing crazy hallucinations of the Joker from his perspective? Who knows? It's very mysterious, which I like. There's great Red Hood moments, great Batgirl moments, Barbara as Batgirl. I like Batgirl a lot. I'm very tempted to read her current run, just because one of the covers caught my eye at the store the other day, and I was like, I never read Batgirl, but I'm like this is Family guy. So
this is a small question, but what does Jason's costume look like?
He is Red Hood.
But does he have the mask and leather jacket, or does he have his current thing with the hood?
Honest to God, I don't remember. He does have the mask though, and there's a whole bit about the mask.
So he doesn't, because in the current what's his name, Scott Lobdell? Yeah, that's his name, Scott Lobdell. In his current run, which he's been writing Red Hood forever, he's got the red domino mask, and he's got only the bottom half of his Red Hood suit.
He does have the domino mask on. He takes the hood off and has the
underneath. He always has underneath. Yeah, but that's cool. So he has the full mask on. Okay, yes. So it's that Red Hood. That's chill. I'm down for that.
It's really good. It's Jeff Johns. I love Jeff Johns' writing. I'm not that big on him as a movie producer, just because of all the drama,
the stuff,
DC.
Yeah.
But he's a great writer. I will never discredit him as a writer or critique his. I mean, he's written some of my favorite stuff. I have Superman's Secret Origin over on my shelf right there. I love that book. It's a great revigoration of Superman's origin after New 52 kind of went off the rails a little bit for some people. I like some of it. I haven't read all of it, but it's definitely not a fan favorite for sure.
It did create some of my favorite comics, though, I have to say. But that's also, I think, just the age that we're at. And when New 52 came out, we were the prime demographic for it.
Sure.
So
sure. That was kind of when I fell off of comics, because I became a big old jock in high school. For those of you listening, I played basketball and volleyball, and I got wrapped up in all that nonsense and
Sacramento Spence.
Yes, I'm playing ball in Sacramento. But when I got to college, senior year I got back into comics, and thankfully did, because they make me happy. But yes, Secret Origin is cool. Jeff Johns is a great writer. So 3 Jokers is awesome, and I'm excited for you to read it because you're such a Jason Todd fan, and I think there's a lot of great Jason stuff in this.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I'm going to read it right after we stop recording.
It's quite good. I'll avoid spoilers. Maybe we'll spoiler
Yeah.
it up next week about it, but that came out 2 weeks ago, and I finally grabbed it, and the next issue comes out at the end of September. And these are like meaty issues. They're $7, not the typical $4, so it was about 40 to 60 pages, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
It was hearty. It was good. It was really, really good. The art is great. And, like I said, Jeff Johns, great. But yeah, Batman 3 Jokers, I would say check it out. But Kieran will read it, and next week we'll give you some spoilery stuff.
And I will fully,
which is the theme of today, I guess. We're talking Black Label.
That's and Jason is a character where you either write him absolutely correctly or absolutely wrong, and I will be brutally honest if they nail the character or not. But
yeah,
I
thought they did.
I think, did Jeff Johns write? You might not know this what I'm talking about at all here, right? But do you remember Batman and Robin Eternal at all?
Yeah.
Cool. That was like the Robin series basically. It was called Batman and Robin, but it was mostly Robins. And I think, did Jeff Johns write that?
I'm not positive, but I can do a quick Google search for
this. Part of me says yes, part of me says no. It might have been Snyder. I remember recognizing the name on the cover, whatever the name was.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like that book.
I find it.
While you're searching, I'll just say on that book which I want to go back and read more of it, because I also found out that, get this, right? I read the first maybe 15 issues of that, and then I fell off the wagon because those were being released every week. That was a really, really on it kind of series.
There's a lot of different writers for it.
Issue 30, you'll never believe who shows up.
Who shows up?
For the first time since his debut appearance, Calvin Rose Talon shows up in Batman and Robin Eternal. And you know why he does? Because later on, maybe Tynion wrote that actually.
I was about to say to you, it's got a lot of writers, but on that list are Tynion, Snyder, Scott Snyder, Tim Seeley, Steve Orlando, Genevieve Valentine, Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly, and Ed Brisson.
Cool.
So, yes,
so I think
that makes sense that Talon showed up, because it probably was an issue Tynion wrote.
Yeah. I think it started as a Snyder and Tynion collaboration, which they were doing 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Scott went off the project and just left it to Tynion. Because I remember when I was talking to Tynion at the time, he was not at the time this came out, but there's a bit of a delay, so he obviously wasn't giving anything away. But I met him at a con around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was gushing about Talon, and that was he genuinely was happy to hear about Talon because he's a very forgotten character. And he was he said to me, he's like, yeah, you know what? Look out in Detective Comics. I have a little bit of a plan to maybe bring Talon in there, right?
Oh.
And so I was like, that's cool. And that was a while ago. So I think Batman and Robin Eternal is where he ended up putting him in there. But I like to think that maybe, just maybe, I had a little bit of an influence on that decision to bring Talon back into the DC universe.
K-Man is responsible for Talon being in Batman and Robin Eternal. There you go.
You can thank me.
On that note, if you don't have anything left to say about Batman 3 Jokers, to bring the conversation back around, even though you haven't read it.
Yeah. Let's next issue.
Next
or
issue.
Is the end of the show.
That is our
next
last issue we read this week.
Okay, cool. I have an idea. I have an idea for something that we do at the end of that segment.
All right.
What's your pick of the week, Spencer, for new stuff?
Things I've read, my favorite
of the new stuff.
Probably Tinian's at 98, which you haven't read yet.
Haven't.
And second, I would say, I really liked all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I go Tinian 98, Strange 2, Batman 3 Jokers, and Daredevil 1 of the 4 things we read.
Okay, cool.
Current issues. You have not read. What would you rank of the?
Well, mine, I won't even rank because I don't really remember off the top of my head what I did and didn't read this week. But my pick is absolutely Daredevil, Chip Zdarsky. In my opinion, with the Kieran Collins seal of approval, the K-Man seal of approval, this is not just a high recommendation. This is a must read. I feel like this is going to be
read.
This will be a historic run. I can feel it already.
There it is. A must.
That's my prediction. Yeah.
Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil Annual #1. Kieran Collins K-Man stamp of approval.
That's right.
On that note, we are going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the New Adventures of K-Man and Spence. If you'd like to support our programming, you can do so by visiting anchor.fm/the New Adventures of K-Man and Spence. You can donate to our show, help us grow our small community of comics fanatics, tell a friend, whatever you want to do to give us support. Again,
see, I didn't even know we had that.
We do have that feature on our Anchor page. It's true.
Cool.
Again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Writing and producing for this episode of The New Adventures of K-Man and Spence was done by myself, Spencer Bennett, and my co-host, Kieran Collins. Editing was done by Spencer Bennett. Our logo was created by Spencer Bennett. Our music was composed by Brandon LaBelle. This show is a proud participant in the Deconstructed Podcast Network, complete now with the Disney Deconstructed Podcast, unofficial experts hosted by Preston Moore. Maybe You Should Care, political discussion podcast that should be coming back here in just a week or two. And of course, this show, The New Adventures of K-Man and Spence. Link for that is in the description. Again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Pow!
Excelsior!
Oh.